Hey there, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. It's such a dreary day, and I've been looking forward to this.
I know. I've been fighting not taking a nap for quite a while now.
That it
Yeah,
feels like a good day for a nap, right?
yeah, it does feel like a good day for nap. Although, the plants need it, so
They
it's
do.
a good thing to
I know
have.
we've been holding out on planting our basil and tomatoes. I think we had this conversation, but I feel like we're like almost ready, and I'm like, oh, but it's getting cold. I'm looking at the next week, and I think we're in the safe zone now. Like it feels like we're a little, yeah.
Because I'm gonna take my nod from you. So based on when you plant yours, I'm going to replant mine because the two tomato plants I planted are dead now.
Yeah, because the frosted, what was that? I mean, it wasn't even a snow, but it was
I
a
know.
frost.
I
I
know.
think I'm gonna turn off my video. I wasn't sure with the overlay. I'm gonna turn off my video and adjust the lights. I'll be right back
Okay.
just to make. How's your kitty today?
I just fed her, so I'm hoping she's well behaved. She usually gets fed at like 4 o'clock, and I fed her today at 3. So she's
Strategy.
probably very excited right now. Yeah.
Jess and I were talking about um I'm lucky this way with our dog because he really just kind of sleeps in the corner, sleeps on his bed all day. But she was saying how she strategically gives her dog some chew bones because
Oh, yeah.
Betty is really happy she's home. She says she's a little bit more talky now. She's
Yeah.
like, bark, let me out, bark, let me in, bark. So she has to kind of like, decide when it's bone time.
Yeah, totally. Like, especially it's like strategically placed around phone calls, I'm sure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah,
excited.
my cat is a lot more chill now that I'm home. Like
Is
she's
she
getting
really?
all of the attention, and so she's really fine. And
Yeah.
um, I don't know what it's going to be like when we leave the house.
Whatever that is.
I
Yeah,
had a friend that was coming to visit me from Seattle in 2 weeks. She was coming out the 13th, and we just rescheduled the trip for later in the summer. Yeah.
sorry.
I was like, even if we're open, it's going to be like the lamest trip
I was
ever.
gonna
Like,
say, I mean, you could hang out in your house,
yeah. But like,
not
that's not very much fun.
not the same. So she was coming out to Lancaster to see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you feel a little bit like I feel like this a little bit when I get out of town guests? I kind of like want to impress them. I mean, maybe she's been to Lancaster before,
No,
but
this is the first time.
I
Yeah.
feel like unless people know Lancaster, they don't know how cool it is.
Yeah.
I have
I
to.
mean, I think a lot of my Seattle friends thought that I had lost my mind when I said I was moving back here. And honestly, I thought I had lost my mind a little bit too, until I, found all of the great things. So, and not so much show off. Like, I don't want to try to convince them that I made a good decision as much as like demonstrate to them how cool smaller communities can be in
Yeah,
terms of not just like things to do, but the vibe and the way we relate to one another. And
the connectedness.
yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. So, because my husband and I both went to grad school in DC,
Mm.
and I think my experience is when you're in a city like that that's so important for the workings of the nation and the world, like it can be a little bubbly, like we're important. This is so, and so, yeah, my friends who are there are still a little like Lancaster.
Yeah.
I'm like, just come visit. I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you.
You don't have to take my word for it. You can come see for yourself.
It's a wonderful.
I am having a friend of mine said I should have a plant.
Ooh.
So I do, but now I feel like I just have this green growth coming out of my head, and there's like no good
Place
place
for
for it.
it.
Anyway, we'll see.
It did not even, it looks like a nice pop of green to me in the
Oh,
background. This is a good, for everyone who's listening to us talk, Joy,
yeah.
Dan, and Jennifer, if you're here, nice tip.
Yes,
Green in
that
the
was my
background.
friend Sarah from Seattle, who recommended that I should have a plant in the background.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I haven't experimented with the virtual backgrounds because it kind of looks like they eat you sometimes, but there's some really cool ones. So that's a good idea to have something a little bit alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, back there.
Well, I'm logged in as you. That worked
awesome.
Fine. I've got PDFs of the exercise section.
Awesome.
So I think we're good to go. I've got all of the breakout room features.
Mm-hmm. And good, so you have access to that. And I downloaded the slides and the handouts just in case if anything goes wonky.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull that up real quick from my end just so I have them on my screen in case I need to share it.
Actually, let me resend you the
Sure.
PowerPoint because I made some last minute changes. I trimmed some stuff and added some, they're not big changes. I found some typos, that kind of thing. So did you do a final look at, what was I trying to say? The head count? Did it change at all?
What? I didn't. Let me get in. We had, it was a bit of a moving target because we had several people. I had to keep up in the number of it because there were a lot of people who double registered.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I don't know enough about Eventbrite to kick them off. But so it was like people who registered by accident with their same email.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had a number of people email and say they couldn't come, but they haven't removed themselves from the Eventbrite. So I feel like the number's still squishy.
Okay.
I know that there's a couple extra because Sarah and Tony are joining us at the start. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me see if I can check real quick though.
Yeah, or if you can just like send me that final list.
Yeah, I can send you the final. Hold on. Let's see if I can log in here. All right, and that PowerPoint just came through, so I'm going to download that real quick. Right. Thinking. We had some internet fun on our staff call this morning because the wind was blowing so powerfully. I feel like the internet hasn't quite recovered. I'm getting a lot of. Have you had any trouble today with the?
No, but I haven't been doing a whole lot. This is my first Zoom, so everything else was. I'm trying to write an email, sort of updating my list on what's happening next and all that kind of stuff. So it was more offline. Just it's that trick of like trying to find the right tone, right? But then also like conveying the information, but not having it be so long that people don't read it. So I think it's going to go through multiple drafts.
That is something. Aaron on our team is so good because and I know this. I've gotten a lot better at not making things too text heavy, but he's really good on getting us to parse things out with headings. Or make things bold because it's hard when you have a lot of information that's really important to not. That's a hard balance. I see Tony connected. Hi, Tony. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Not to oversell it, but it's going to
be no pressure.
No pressure.
I need to adjust the light here real quick. Just. I feel like anyone that's in like the theater arts or photography or, like
Mhm.
any sort of skill about how to make yourself look presentable could really adjust their services and be quite busy, I
It
would.
could be Zoom consultants. That would be.
Yeah. I mean, I would pay money if someone could just like cut through stuff for me to say like, okay, here's how you put the, like, I don't know how to make it so that there's like a screen where it has my website
Mm-hmm.
or on the screen. There's a way to do that, I'm sure, but like, I haven't figured that out yet.
For Zoom, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brenda somehow had made it was like a Zoom bingo. I think she might have downloaded it from another organization though. But it was like a funny little Zoom bingo. So right, like, you're muted. Please mute. There's a cat, like whatever,
Yeah.
So I've seen organizations doing that, but I don't know how. Is it a backdrop or is it something different, like a branding? You don't know. Yeah. You're like, if I knew, it would be.
Yeah, there would be a way to know, but I'm sure someone knows how to do that. I did try to figure it out earlier today because I thought that would be handy, but I couldn't. So we're just going old school.
I think this is great. There's a plant. We're good.
Yep, it's a plant.
That's great.
Small wins.
It's gonna be. Thinking.
So I saw that Kitchen's coming up in the series. Do you have anything happening after her?
So we're looking at Margie, which I owe her an email. Margie from Fulton Bank. Marjorie, I believe. So they might possibly be the 21st, and then hey, welcome everyone. Yeah, and then we're planning out for kind of past the 21st.
Yeah.
Figuring out. Oh, we got people joining.
Yay.
Exciting.
Lovely to see everyone's
faces /
Yeah.
Really. Hi, Deb. We got Stephanie coming on.
Yeah.
Hey, Colleen. Oh, it's so good to see your face.
You too. I was thinking about you this morning.
Me too. I miss getting coffee with you. Someday in like a year, we can all get coffee again, right? Breathe each other's air. How's Colleen, how is remote school going for your girls?
It's a little intense.
Is it really?
Because I have 3 and they're all in different grades, but I would say my oldest, being in 7th grade, today she had 7 Zooms.
Oh my. That's a lot to manage.
How is she by the end of the day? Because when I'm on Zoom a lot, I'm just wrecked. I'm so exhausted.
She is. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are her big days like that way. The other days aren't so bad, but yeah, you can totally, the house feels it.
Yeah.
Wow. And where I just saw, was it Delane?
Suzanne.
Hey, oh, look at these. Somebody Tennis Central just had the backdrop up and we were talking about how we don't know how to make those and it was so cool. Yes. How did you do that?
It's actually very simple. If you take a couple of the Zoom classes online, which is just adding another Zoom thing to your day. But you just basically drag, if you go down under where it says video and you pull up the little arrow to the right of the camera, it says virtual backgrounds. And if you click on that, you can drag any pictures from your logos or pictures from your photo album over and share them. They can be your backdrop.
Okay. I'm going to have to try to find that.
Teaching us things. Thank you.
There's my team. There's my McCaskey team. There you go.
Oh my God. Aw.
Aww.
So you can do all kinds of fun things with it.
Yeah.
Create a slide. Pick a slide up.
Hey, neighbor.
Hi, Deb. Oh my gosh, this is my next door neighbor.
No way. Oh. Yay.
So I missed your tutorial on how to do a cool backdrop. So you'll have to fill me in over the fence.
I'll fill you in from the driveway. Yeah.
Okay.
And welcome everyone that is joining. I appreciate, look at you super punctual people. We have 3 minutes to spare and you're on. Happy Thursday. Anybody else have a good virtual background? Hi, Christine.
Just a real one.
What'd you say, Bob?
Just a real one.
Just a real one. Yeah, me too. Not as cool. Hi, Larry. Hi, Bob. Good to see you. I always feel like we should have some background music on Zoom calls. There's always the, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Probably a way to do that too.
probably a way to do it. There's probably a setting
Yeah.
somewhere in the Zoom calls.
I think if you haven't already, everyone should buy stock in Zoom.
I'm very curious about Google Meet.
Hmm.
It's something has anybody used Google Meet? I've never used it.
We use it, yeah.
Yeah.
My staff and I have been using it actually every day.
Really?
Pretty similar in capability and layout, but honestly, I think I like Zoom a little bit better.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it?
FYI, the G Suites, which is Google Meets and Google whatever, their G Suites, is right now free for nonprofits. So I don't like it better than Zoom. I like Zoom better because you can see more people, but you have to pay for Zoom if you want more people.
Yeah, the licensing part. Yeah, I'm curious. I kind of want to just try out Google Meet to see how it's different from Google Hangouts, because Google Hangouts is not an idea. I know that I think there's levels you can do with Google Hangouts as well, but thank you for the tip on the G Suite. I just learned that term today, G Suite. This great group of folks. We're going to give people just a couple more minutes to join and then we'll get started. Welcome everybody. We're really glad you're here. We're going to have a really great and full session. Yeah, so we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
I was curious to see how many pictures could actually fit on the screen. And I think it's 50 or not even, like I can't see the whole room anymore. So.
Wow, I don't think I can get mine big enough to do, yeah. Gallery view.
Yeah, it's like 2 pages now. That's so exciting.
This is exciting.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hold on. I can't see who said hi. Who said hi?
It was Danny.
Hi, Dan. Oh, sorry. There's so many people. It's a good thing. All right. We are at 3:32. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started. We're going to start with just a little bit of hello and introductions. So hello, everybody. Welcome to Developing Lancaster / Nonprofit Peer Group. So this is our fundraising during COVID-19, moving beyond the immediate crisis with Danny Beam. We're so excited that Danny is here. So just real quick, we kind of have a mix of people here today because like I said, this is Developing Lancaster / Nonprofit Peer Group. So Developing Lancaster is the Lancaster County Community Foundation's group for nonprofit development professionals and fundraisers in Lancaster. We usually meet in person. That is not happening now. We are meeting weekly via Zoom and through a partnership with the Lancaster Chamber and the United Way. There's also something happening called Nonprofit Peer Group. So you might have been to a couple in the last week. There was one a couple weeks ago called Ask the Accountant. There was another one last week about communications. And so this is a partnership between the foundation, the Chamber, and the United Way as a way to, lift up what else is happening in the community between the 3 organizations, make sure that all the different networks we have access to this really great content. And so we also have Sarah and Tony on the call, Sarah from United Way and Tony from the Chamber. Just as a reminder, we've been partnering with the United Way on the Lancaster Cares Fund. It's putting out grants in the community The emerging needs grants are active. The application is out there. So if your organization is seeing emerging needs, that application is still going. You can still apply for up to $10,000 in funding. I will turn it over to Sarah and Tony before I introduce Danny and we go ahead. So Sarah, if you'd like to go.
Hi, sure. Thank you so much for having me. And on behalf of the United Way of Lancaster, we're very excited to be partnering with the Community Foundation and the Chamber to support nonprofits across the county during this really uncertain and turbulent time. At UW specifically, one thing that we're doing to give back to the community, which is something that we do throughout the normal year, but that's particularly heightened right now, is our 211 service that serves all of Eastern Pennsylvania. So you call 211 if you're in need of social services, and they can answer any questions you have, whether it's about how to use food stamps for the first time or how to file for unemployment. So they've been working around the clock, particularly helping out those who may be facing these problems for the first time. So we're very happy and excited to be a resource for the community.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thanks for being on the call. Tony, would you like to say anything about the chamber?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sad I can't be on video at the moment. I do love changing my Zoom backgrounds. Most are Star Wars related. So, but maybe next time. Thank you. Yeah. So first off, I just want to point out just how thankful we are at the Chamber for the collaboration we see in the business and nonprofit community. We always know we have it in this county, but when you really see it in action, it's pretty inspiring and amazing. So at the Lancaster Chamber, we have been specifically offering a variety of content for businesses, whether that's for-profits, nonprofits. Our goal has been to create effective, helpful content, through webinars or virtual events, just to kind of help navigate. There's so much out there, and we want to be sure that we can cut through some of that noise. So we did create our landing page. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is lancasterchamber.com/coronavirus. And it's, I want to say 12 sections pertaining to different things, nonprofits, virtual events, a lot of different legislative updates. So definitely check it out. We also have, Ashlyn mentioned some of our past seminars and webinars and things like that. And we have over, I think it's maybe now 18 available to access now. So if you want to check those out, you can watch those, listen to those. And thanks again, for the partnerships. We're excited that we have these partnerships in this community to make this happen. So thanks, and I'm excited for today's session.
Thank you so much, Tony and Sarah. And I feel like we say it all the time in Lancaster, but the way we can collaborate and lift each other up, I think, is something that makes our community really special. So we're also really grateful for the opportunities we're seeing to be in partnership with y'all. Thank you also for leaving up 211 and the Chamber's website. There's a lot of resources going around right now. The last one I want to say before Danny kicks it off is the Lancaster County Community Foundation's collective, which I think everybody got an email about. If you didn't, let us know. We'll get you some info. It's basically a part of our website that's a platform for fundraising. So if you want to put your organization's info in there to direct to your own fundraising site, if you don't feel like you have a really robust online fundraising landing page, this is a new thing that we're doing at the foundation as a way for donors when they come there to see organizations by topic, by issue areas, because we're trying to encourage giving across the board, right? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danny Beam. So we have Danny Beam here. We're so excited. It's a full session. So we're going to stop talking, I promise. So Danny is our amazing speaker. She specializes in working with individuals and organizations to find creative and practical solutions to meet their needs and leverage their strengths. She has over 20 years of experience as an organizational leader, a facilitator, and a nonprofit fundraiser. One of my favorite things about Danny is she really has a strengths-based approach. So these are really uncertain times. These are hard times. It's really easy to get into a scarcity mentality. And Danny can really lift us up out of that. So I'm going to mute myself. Danny, last little bit. If you have a question, please pop it into the chat. There's a lot of us on the call. There will be time for question and answers. I'll be monitoring that. And I'll let Danny take it away. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashlyn. So those of you that can see me, you can see that I'm called Ashlyn today. And that is because in a little bit, we're gonna do some breakout rooms, and I needed to be able to control the Zoom so that we could break us out. So in case you're confused about my identity, so am I, but I think it's only temporary. So I am going to share my screen with you, and we'll get started. Okay, almost there. Okay, here's my PowerPoint. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today. Thank you to the Lancaster County Community Foundation. Thank you to the United Way, and thank you to the Chamber. It is dazzling and a little bit of breathtaking to be a part of a community that is throwing all of their resources together to lift all of us up. I'm always grateful and amazed by the way in which we truly live out this COVID model of we're all in this together. So thank you. I also want to thank all of those of you that are on this Zoom call today. I wish that I could throw up each of your logos as well, but there's more than 60 of you, and that would take the whole time. So just know that I see the ways in which you guys keep showing up. I've been offering my own webinars. I know that there's a lot of content out there, and you keep coming, and you are such a group of smart, resourceful, committed, resilient people, and I'm really grateful to be part of this crowd. So thank you for joining me today. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're gonna do, but first I have to introduce you to my cat. Her name is Snow, and I wanted to put this right at the top because she is an active and engaged participant in my household, and it is likely that you are either going to see her or hear her at some point today. So I apologize for any disturbance, but look how cute she is. And it's also worse to close the door than it is to leave it open. And those of you that have pets might know what that's like. So what we're going to do today, we're first going to talk a little bit about what's working. So we have been in this situation long enough now. Organizations are trying different things and you're having some results. So I'm going to review some of the different examples of what's been successful so far, and then pull out a couple common themes or activities that have helped contribute to that success. And then we're going to make a plan. So like I said, I have been leading my own webinars. These webinars are happening. I know there's a ton of resources out there, and maybe this is only me, but I'm starting to feel like sometimes I confuse showing up for a webinar with actually doing the thing that I need to do or implementing the things that I'm learning on the webinar. So I thought I would walk you through a 3-step process that you can take back and implement to come up with a COVID fundraising plan moving forward. So we're going to review that. Central to any successful plan is how you are asking for support and what you're asking donors to support. So we'll also spend a little bit of time going into a deeper dive on what makes for a compelling appeal. And I have some samples of successful appeals to share with you there. And then last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about replacing or keeping your event revenue. So next week, you get the benefit of having a webinar with Christine and Susan from Allegra Events, and I'm not going to steal their thunder. Some of you, however, might have had to postpone your event or cancel it altogether, and you're in a bit of a cash flow crunch. So if you are planning a virtual event or thinking about an event in the fall or later next year, Christine and Susan can help you with that. What I'll talk about is what if you need money now, and we'll talk about some techniques to hopefully help you regain some losses. And then we'll have time for question and answers. There are going to be 2 points during my session today where we do break out into small groups, and that's because on my own webinars, I've heard pretty emphatically that one of the things that my group is valuing the most is the opportunity for them to talk to each other, for you guys to talk to each other. One of my clients said she thoroughly enjoyed talking to her nonprofit cousins. So I thought that that was really great. So I'm going to give you a chance to share your wisdom and experience with one another at 2 different times during this session. Okay? Okay, let's get started. So first of all, let's start with some good news. So These are 3 organizations. So you might be familiar with 2 out of the 3. The third one, Faro Marine Life Center, is in Washington State, where I have a number of clients. So I wanted to give you little examples of how each of these 3 organizations have experienced success so far. So Faro, most of their programming is helping kids get out into the natural world and learning about the marine sciences and ocean life. And it is an aquarium where there are touch tanks and they can touch starfish and, you know, manipulate the ocean environment. And clearly during COVID, that's not happening. But they were able, through conversations with their donors, to secure an additional $30,000 in funding because the donors wanted to make sure that they could stay open during this time and have the resources that they needed to take what they were doing in real life and create online courses for the kids in their community to augment the educational opportunities that are also happening for folks online. So that was through, you know, sharing the need and one-on-one conversations. So that came in from a small handful of donors. Our friends at Community Action Partnership, they have, they've experienced a 1,110% increase in gifts from last year at this time. And one of the things that Christy and her team are doing is they're reaching out to all of the people that have made gifts and doing thank you calls. And they're having these really rich, warm conversations. So in addition to experiencing an uptick in gifts, because people know that CAP can help serve some of the very vulnerable folks in our community, they're also building relationships with their donors and being able to get information from their donors on why they care about CAP's mission, why they're choosing to give now in spite of everything that's going on. And they're being able to they're able now to make adjustments in their fundraising strategy as a result of some of these conversations that they've been having. And last but not least, I don't know if any of you follow Prima on Facebook, but one of the big results of Prima's fundraising success is that Mitch is now bald. He had to shave his head as a result of a challenge. But he had 2 different approaches going on. He had the at-home fund, and that was basically a membership so that you could watch Prima experiences online. And then he also created a hero fund to help subsidize some of the actors that are now out of work and to continue to support Prima itself. And so far they've raised $12,000 between those 2 things. And Mitch did offer a challenge and now he is bald. So lots of good things coming out of this moment. What we notice, or what I notice about these 3 things is that there's sort of 3 themes that are happening. And here I want to give credit to our friends at Work Wisdom. So Kedron and Sarah had this lovely little thing on LinkedIn, maybe you saw it, but talking about this concept of richness of medium. And richness of medium is the method or the way that you're communicating with someone has varying degrees of richness or varying degrees of substance to it. So obviously a one-on-one conversation or a small group live conversation is the richest of mediums in order to communicate, because you can get people's body language, you can see their facial expressions, they have the opportunity to interrupt and ask questions without worrying that Zoom is going to break on them. So there's a lot of substance in that kind of experience. We can't do that right now. So it's on us to come up with second and third and fourth best options in order to convey information and give donors a qualitative experience. And the organizations that are having success in fundraising are leaning into some of the richer mediums. So it's more Zoom conversations, it's more phone calls, it's more handwritten, personalized opportunities. So it's not just lobbing an appeal out in an email or a newsletter and hoping for the best, but they're really creating these opportunities to connect and relate in as best a way possible that is not quite as good as one-on-one, but it's the next best option. And so those organizations that are putting the time and intentionality around creating Zoom and phone call opportunities to connect with donors are seeing really positive results. They're also having success in tying their appeals to support for special offerings, needs, or experiences during COVID. So every organization that I just gave as an example, they tied the request to the fact that these are changed times. And so they weren't just asking the donors to support them to keep their lights on, but they were asking the donors to support the work that they're doing, that they had to shift and adjust so that they could meet a new or extreme demand that they hadn't encountered before. So stitching the appeal to something that's very timely and contextual and COVID related is working well for folks. And then the third element, and this is why I think Mitch's is such a really good example, is that they're doing very human and personal opportunities to engage. So it's not just the newsletter, but people are sharing pictures of their kids or their pets or how they spend time in the morning. And it's breaking down some of those barriers. So oftentimes, if we send an email out or a newsletter, it's very professional and polished, and we talk about our programs, but we're not necessarily highlighting the people behind the programs. So the organizations that are really showcasing, hey, here's this person that you're helping, or hey, here I am, I'm the program director that does this thing, you're making it much more human and relatable, and that's having a lot of success. Chrissy Arn at CAP, when I was asking her, what was working for her, she said, I'm really leaning into what's good right now. There's a lot of good right now that's coming out of it. And so I thought that that was a lovely phrase to share with you. Now I'd like to take a break and break you up into your small groups. And I would ask you to have about 7-ish minutes to talk to one another about what you've tried so far that's working well. But before I break you into the breakout rooms, have any of you experienced breakout rooms before? If you have a little thumbs up, a couple of you. Okay, great. So for those of you that haven't, what we're gonna do is I'm going to put you in the breakout room, and you don't have to do anything except when it invites you to join, you hit the join button, and you're gonna be plunked in with 5 or 6 of your closest friends. And then you get to discuss about what's been working in your organization right now. I am going to, I can chat with all of the groups, and I might be popping in to your groups. And then when it's time to close, I'll send an announcement out to everyone that you'll be able to see. And again, you don't have to do anything. I just close it and we'll all rejoin in the room together, okay? So I'm gonna start it right now. And there are 60 of you. So I'm going to break you into 12 rooms. So there should be 5 each. And like I said, just when it invites you to join, click that join button and you should be good to go. Okay, here we go. See you back after 7. So there are 3 of you that say that you've not joined a breakout room. Are you finding the button okay, or do you need help? Okay, welcome back, everyone. How was that for you? Anything surprising or particularly noteworthy that you want to share with the group?
I would just say it was nice meeting new people.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad that was a highlight. Yeah. Anyone get lost on the way to the breakout room? Could happen. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you again, so we can keep moving through the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's talk about making a plan. So like I said at the top of our time together, we've been able to have access to a lot of content and a lot of information and a lot of new ideas and new ways of thinking. And so now it's time to start taking all of this information that we've been collecting and absorbing and turning it into a bit of a plan so that once the shelter in place order lifts, you can hit the ground running, and knowing that you have not only funds to raise for the rest of this year, but for 2 or 3 years out. So, and I imagine that your previous fundraising plan, much of it has been thrown out the window. So there are 3 steps to this process. First, we're going to analyze previous year's results. Then we're going to list all fundraising activities from last year and identify new strategies, and then we'll implement them. So step 1. I am going to give this worksheet to you as a PDF so you have it and you can use it. But when I conduct development assessments, I like to cross-cut the data in a number of different ways. So first of all, I like to look at donation by gift levels. And so by gift level, I mean what is here on the left-hand side of the page. So that 0 to 499, 500 to nearly $1,000. Those are the various gift levels that you want to cut it by, because you want to see which bands of donation ranges are performing the best for you. And then you also want to take a look at your previous year's fundraising activity, all of the activity that you can think of, whether it's a direct mail appeal, whether it's a newsletter that you send, individual solicitations, large and small events, extra give, anything that you do in the realm of fundraising that brings money back in for you. And so a second sheet would be taking those activities and attributing dollars raised to each of them. So you can start to see which activities perform better for you than others. For example, Extra Give might be a highlight of the year for many Lancaster organizations, and that might mean that your appeals don't generate as much. But you want to know that, because part of what you're going to need to evaluate moving forward is where to put your limited resources. And you do want to use a strengths-based approach and place your precious time and money into the things that are have the best likelihood of generating more revenue for you, even if that revenue is not immediate. And then the third thing that I recommend that you look at is donations by category. And by category, I mean, here I split it up between board giving, individual giving, corporate giving, foundation grants, planned gift bequests. And again, you want to see which of those categories are generating the most money for you. So here's a sample exercise, and this is where I'm going to break you guys into the last breakout session before we carry on with the rest of it. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to practice some analyzation with a group and coming up with different ideas for what you would do for the different categories. So there are 2 samples, and I'm going to send this to you in a PDF in a minute so you have access to it in your small groups, because I know you can't see the PowerPoint when you're in your small groups. So this is the first one, and what you have in front of you here is a breakdown by donor segment, that giving level, and by giving categories, so individual, corporations, and foundations. It's the same data from the same organization. It's just sliced a little bit differently at the top level, because for this client, I wanted to help them drill down and see where their biggest gifts were coming from, whether it was individuals, corporations, or foundations. And then for the lower levels, you can see the range that other donations are coming in. And because most of those lower level gifts tend to be individuals, I didn't segment it out as much. So that's the first sample. The second sample is an appeal comparison with an extra gift comparison. And so having a discussion in your group about which is performing better, and some ideas that you might use to either strengthen the appeals or shift appeal donors to extra give. There's no wrong idea at this point. Like I said, it's just an opportunity for you to practice looking at the data and to make some ideas or come up with some strategies based on what you're seeing. Questions about that before I break you into groups again. And you can do one or both of them. It all depends on how well you guys love data and how much you want to geek out on this stuff. But I'm going to stop and share that so I can find my little chat button and share that with the group.
And Danny, while you're finding it, Kim asked, are we able to share the slides from today's presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. You have that. You want to just send it out? Or do you want me to send it out now?
I think I have the recent one from you, so I'll send it around to the group when I send the recording, everybody.
Yeah, so you'll be given slides, and then I have a couple different worksheets and a sample case statement. And then I also have a summary of a book that I like a whole lot called The 7 Faces of Philanthropy. So you're going to get that too. So you'll get all sorts of stuff. But here come the sample exercises. So everyone should have just seen that pop up in your chat. You have it? Can you see it? Head nods? Yeah, okay. All right, I am gonna break you out again. Talk amongst yourselves. And again, you have about 5-7 minutes. And don't forget to join, hit that join button so that you can join a group.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry I'm so late.
That's okay. You're being invited to join. Oh, I need to assign some people. Hang on. You're gonna be assigned to different breakout rooms.
Great.
Sorry, I was trying to go back and see the documents and I left the room. Sorry.
That's okay. It's no worries. I'm plunking you somewhere. You'll find out where you are in a minute.
Love the hair, Christy.
Thanks, Jen.
Ooh.
Well, yeah.
Hi, Jenny. I haven't gotten the any invite yet to join.
Yep, I'm sending you right now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
There we go.
It says everyone's been assigned. So
I was in room 11, but like I said, I left to come back to try to get the, there, and I was in with Marianne.
Okay, so let me see if I can find you guys. Oh, not joined and not joined. So I'm gonna move you into room 10.
Okay.
So make sure you join it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put her in room 10 as well.
I'm not seeing anything.
Not seeing it. So it says I just haven't joined. Let me.
Here it goes. If I go down, I see it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And Marianne, just make sure you scroll down and click the join button.
Oh, join break room. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Welcome back, everybody. So I know that that was a little wonky. Sorry about that. Ashlyn and I practiced this yesterday, but it was just the two of us. So it turns out you need more people to practice when you're sharing files to see if it actually goes through in the way that you wanted it to. So sorry for the trouble. And hopefully if you weren't able to do the exact exercise, you had a good conversation anyway. And so is everyone back in the main room? Yeah. Okay, so going on to step 2 in this. So you just took a look back at what was working or what you did last year and where your money came from and what activities generated that revenue for you. Now we want to list all of the fundraising activities and identify new strategies. So part of this is to just create a laundry list so that you know all of the things that you did last year that helped to generate revenue, even all the way down to thank you calls, or if you did unique recognition opportunities for people, whether it is putting a donor profile in a newsletter, whether you gave small tokens or gifts. You want to list all of that out, because the next step in this exercise is to take a marker and cross out all of the ones that you can't do for whatever reason during COVID. So the big one right now, obviously, is a gala or a large fundraising event. But for various reasons, there might be other things that you would normally do that are just too hard to do right now, or too expensive, or are not going to generate the most results. So you want to have a really clean list of what is still possible for you to do moving into this next year. And then after that, you want to brainstorm some additional ideas. And I would recommend that you brainstorm with your whole staff by doing a drop, add, keep, improve exercise. So when you get this slide deck, there's a link on this page to that exercise. So if you've not done it before, it has instructions on how to do that. At the top of our time together, we talked about what was working for you right now, whether it's engagement on social media, whether it's communicating with donors in new ways. And so I would recommend that whatever is working right now gets moved on to this new list, and that you keep leaning into those things for the foreseeable future. Some of that is going to be direct revenue generation, whether it's an appeal or another kind of fundraising event, but this stuff around engaging with your audience, expressing gratitude, checking up on people, all of those touch points are really going to strengthen any appeal that you do make. So even if it's not a direct, dollar for activity ratio, these things that are working well, you want to continue to do, because they'll support you in the long run. Individuals are the biggest contributor to what's going on right now. Foundations and corporations obviously are doing their part, but when we look at the data about where these donations are coming, by and large, they're coming from individuals. So keep that in mind as you're developing new ideas or new strategies. So for example, if we go back to this page, what I see here is that many donations come in that are under $500, which tells me that they might be doing a pretty good job in raising money from either newsletters, direct mail appeals, extra give, or some other activity like that. And those are often individual gifts. So one of the strategies that this client might want to employ moving forward is, are there ways that we can make giving small dollar amounts more often really exciting or enticing? One, so that they are seeing the impact of their work, but two, it's going to help create that stable foundation for the organization. one client had the idea of sponsoring a family for some of the needs. And so asking people to make donations, knowing that they were sponsoring that particular family. So again, it added that personal and human element to it too. And they were asking for small donations. So that's what I mean about coming up with strategies that match the different giving segments and donor categories, thinking of things that you can do to keep in front of those people and inspire them to either give more or give again. The last thing I want to say about individuals is that many donors choose to make their gifts at the end of the year in December, and I am having some clients have success with asking donors to make those year-end gifts now. It might mean that you have the opportunity to ask them for a gift at the end of the year again, and they say yes. It might mean that they just shift their giving to another time of the year, but that has been productive for some, and it's also helping to address some cash flow issues for organizations. So that might be another strategy that's useful for you. Okay, so after you've done the drop, add, keep exercise, after you've listed everything out, you should have a pretty tight set of strategies and activities that you can use throughout the year. So now you want to implement it. So first of all, now isn't the time to be a lone wolf. I would encourage all of those of you as fundraisers and executive directors on this webinar to employ the entire organization staff in different fundraising activities, whether it's having a program officer make a thank you call, if you have someone that answers the phones, whether that's a volunteer, they might be willing to make some phone calls on your behalf. One of my clients had a board member who received a thank you call from another board member, and he was blown away by that act. He was so impressed by it that he shared it with the whole room and then asked to make thank you calls on behalf of that organization. So giving people the opportunity for everyone to participate is going to strengthen your fundraising, and it's also going to help you broaden your reach. And again, remember, we want more rich mediums, more really productive and substantive conversations with donors right now. So the more people that are reaching out, helping you check in with people, finding out what's motivating the gifts, the more donors you can touch during this time. Don't forget that part of your team are your current donors. And so it might be useful for you to have one of your donors, whether it's someone that's given a small amount for a long, long time or a major donor, also make calls to thank other donors and talk about why they continue to give during this time. Or maybe they're comfortable putting up a matching gift and inspiring other people to give and join them in their contributions. Keep in mind that your donors want not just to give money, but they also want to give support and advice and expertise. So if there are ways that you can involve them in planning your fundraising plan, helping to develop your fundraising plan, do that. And then also use them in a feedback loop. So as you're trying new things, have a trusted group of donors, volunteers, stakeholders that you can reach out to and say, hey, we just tried that thing. What did you think of it? It's okay to try new things right now, and it's also okay to abandon what's not working, but you're not going to know unless you're getting really honest feedback. So I would encourage you to create a feedback loop. And then I would also encourage you to revisit and adjust the plan as necessary every other month or quarterly. We're in such unusual times that the way that we have always done things might not be the way that works for us moving forward. And it's not going to serve you well if you create a plan and then live with that plan, whether it's working or not. So it's important to have that feedback loop and then use that feedback to make adjustments on a really frequent basis to keep your fundraising fresh and keep everyone motivated and keep the money coming in. The organizations that do those last two elements to the implementation are going to have a lot of power behind the plan, because you're going to be getting data in real time. You're going to be getting good insights into what's motivating and inspiring your donors, and you're going to be nimble enough that you can make adjustments so that you can keep fresh and keep your donors engaged. Any questions about that? I've seen a couple of chat things come up, and so I just want to check.
Danny, I'm curious, have you seen a more effective, or maybe more effective or less effective ways to ask donors to be involved? Like I'm thinking of sometimes I get emails and it's a poll and it asks for input, but then it actually, these are political emails, then it actually ends up being a request to actually donate, which
Yeah,
feels
don't do
like,
that.
so just how to take that.
Yeah, because it's a bait and switch. I keep sort of harping on the like actually talk to the people, but I think actually talk to the people. So like identify 5 donors that you trust and that you know that you can reach out to and they'll take your calls, and ask them to just be your thinking partners right now. And so don't send out a survey. I mean, you can, but if you're going to send out a survey, also call those 5 donors on a regular basis and be like, what are you thinking right now? What are you seeing? What's working? What do you think of the stuff that we're doing? And bring them in that way. Polls, the response tends to be so low, first of all, and then 2, you're not really getting the nuance if they're doing a poll. So having conversations, I think, would help you better. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. So let's talk now about developing a compelling appeal. And I know Fritz is on the call, so Fritz, this is where I get to talk about you, and you can correct me if I get it wrong. But the Lancaster County Conservancy, I think, is doing an exceptional job right now. So within about a week's time, they raised more than $55,000 for a stewardship fund. So let me back up. You might have seen, if you're on their mailing list or if you've been reading the newspaper, that people are using their preserves exponentially more than they ever have before. And that's been causing problems in the landscape. It's been causing some tension with the preserve neighbors around parking. And there's just a lot of wear and tear happening in these preserves. So they decided to raise funds to help address some of these issues. But before they sent the appeal out, Phil Wenger, the CEO, started crafting really rich emails out to the audience, sort of stating the dilemma and engaging the donors in the dilemma. So he did a really good job of updating his communications in real time, being really transparent in what the struggle was. And then as a result of that, he started to get some feedback from donors that they wanted to find a way to support it. And the stewardship fund was launched. The initial goal was $30,000. They got a match gift, and then they blew that goal out of the water and raised more than $55,000. So that's an example of an appeal that worked really well. Again, he engaged the donors in the problem. He had some thinking partners that were donors that were responding to what he was saying. And then when they sent the appeal, it was in a direct response to something that was impacted by COVID. And then they had this great little infographic of a tree, and as the gifts came in, you know, it was like a thermometer, but with a tree. So it was really artfully done. So that's one example. Assets is another example. So they created a case statement, a COVID case statement. And so they noticed that before the PPP loans were coming out, the small entrepreneurs in our community, the small business owners, were really, really struggling and really, really scared. So they jumped into action and began working with them, doing Spanish language interpretation, leaning into the programs that they already offer, but doing more of them, and then added a layer of trying to create another source of funding for small business owners that was above and beyond what was already in existence. They put that together in a case statement, and it outlined the challenge that they were addressing and what they were doing differently, and invited donors to join them. And I talked to Tina last week, and they had already secured $200,000 in gifts and pledges for this fund. And she keeps having to reschedule her meeting with me because donors keep asking for proposals. So we keep not connecting because she's doing this work because donors are responding so well to that. So writing out your appeal, whether it's in a master case statement document, whether it's in a shorter appeal, is something I recommend because it really helps to put your thoughts in order. And Tina said that one of the byproducts or the additional benefit of having this case statement was that when they shared it with the staff, it helped the staff understand what role fundraising was playing in all of this and how important it was. And then Assets was having one-on-one conversations with major donors. So again, they were sort of presenting the case statement in a conversation, and donors were able to ask questions, get more information, and then make decisions that way. So when you develop an appeal, and this is whether it's an immediate appeal that you're doing next week or later in the year, keep in mind that you want to engage the donors in the issue before asking for money. Now, I think more than ever, to use that term, it's important to put a runway down before you ask, because you really need to give the audience context and educate them on what you're trying to do, how it's different from what you've done before, and why you're the experts in solving this problem in ways that are worthy of their support. Like I mentioned earlier, tie the request to a direct response to COVID. Even if it's supporting your existing programs, it's okay to talk about how COVID is causing you to adjust or expand your existing programs, and that's why you're asking for money right now. You are the experts, you are worthy, so I would recommend that you position yourselves as such rather than please help us because we're needy. It would be more powerful to say, join us because we're doing this better than anyone else, and you can be confident that we're going to help people because we're so good at this. We've been doing it for so long. And then remember again that right now it's not enough to just send an email, but emails and phone calls or emails and Zoom meetings, so that you're rounding out that experience with the donor, is going to get you further than if you just sent a direct appeal out. Any questions about that?
Danny, one came up in the chat about sharing assets case statements. So I did put that up in the chat again, and I will email it after.
Yeah.
Case statements are actually something I'm not super familiar with. Are there just kind of basic parts to a case statement?
Yeah, and so I'm so glad you mentioned that. So I have two blog articles on my website. It's part 1 and part 2 that basically maps out the various components of case statements and then how to write them. And then you're going to get the assets case statement as a sample. So if you want sort of an instruction manual, go to my blog. I think it's like case statement 1, case statement 2, or something like that is the title. And that gives you the instructions, and then you're going to get the assets case as part of this session.
Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about event revenue. So many of you had to either postpone or cancel or shift your events. And again, the Allegra folks are going to be able to tackle the ins and outs of all of that part of it. But as part of your analysis and developing your fundraising plan, you might be wise to break out your event revenue as well. So you're also going to get this special events chart as a PDF. But what I like to do when I'm doing development assessments is look at your events and try to find all of the different ways that money comes into them. And then now, if you had to suspend that event, you can create separate strategies for all of those different brackets. So for example, if you had people buying tickets, you might want to send an appeal after you've laid out the dilemma, asking previous event attendees to make a gift in the range of what they would have paid for a ticket. If you have people that were making in-kind donations, you might ask them to make in-kind donations that can go to the people that you are providing services for, or in-kind donations that help your staff keep their morale up and keep their energy up during this time. If you have outright donations as a result of an auction, you might consider doing a Facebook competition or some other online opportunity where they could also be making contributions that way. So my client, the Appel Center in York, had to cancel their spring event, and they netted $69,000 from that event last year when it became apparent that they weren't going to be able to pull it off, and they were like so close. It was just like a week away before the stay-at-home order happened. They first of all quickly talked to all of their vendors and were able to negotiate the payments that they made to reserve things were good for next year. But then they reached out to their donors that were participating in this and asked them to make contributions to what they created and called the Sustainability Fund. And they were able to generate $47,000 as a result of that appeal. And that included sponsors and donations from people that were planning to attend the event. So that's not a bad return when you consider that that sustainability fund didn't have any additional expenses with it. And then there were 3 major donors that were planning to give at this gala, and they elected to not join the sustainability fund, but told them instead that their money was going to be available when the next gala took place. So they already have around $30,000 waiting with donors for when the next gala does happen. So if you have an event, and if you are in a cash flow crunch right now, and your virtual event is either not going to generate as much as you hoped, or you were thinking of holding it in the fall and now you're not even sure if that's possible, but you need to bring some money in, those might be some approaches that you can use. Let me say one thing about databases, because a lot of my presentation is really heavy on like, go look at your data. And it's possible that many of you don't have databases that make that easy. If that's the case, I would talk to your friends that are your bookkeepers and your accountants, because it's very likely that they have some version of this data that they can help you pull together. If you don't have coding that people give in response to a specific appeal or gave because they attended a gala, you can use a rough estimate of the time of year that that money came in as a way to determine how donors made the decision to give. And I'm pretty sure your bookkeeper can do a Excel spreadsheet sorting gifts by gift level. So all hope is not lost if your database is not the most user-friendly system for you. One last word about corporate sponsors. So the reason why corporations give to galas, one, they care about the mission and they want to support you, but they also want to show the rest of the community that they care about the community, the things and the mission that you're doing. And so if you can find other ways to highlight their generosity, whether it's a sponsorship band on your website, whether you're doing an honor roll of generosity in your weekly newsletter, whether it's profiles on Facebook, whatever that is, if you can replace that gala experience, but still show the corporations that you have an audience that's seeing this information, you might be able to hold on to some of that sponsorship dollars or still ask for sponsorship gifts right now. Any questions about that? Why? Take a drink. Okay, this is my closing slide. Be like Lord Beaverbrook, sorta. So I want to close with a story from World War II. And I first have to tell you that it was only because of this COVID experience that I read a military history book. But when this all started happening, I was looking for context. And so I went in search for some information about what was happening during World War II, because I know that there were rations and the United Kingdom was bombed, and so things were really dire and scary. And I learned about this guy named Lord Beaverbrook, and he was, Churchill appointed him to ramp up the creation of the airplanes. So in 1939, 1940, Great Britain was really well behind in terms of the number of airplanes that were in the air in comparison to Germany. So they needed to really quickly ramp up production. So Churchill appointed this guy to get more jets in the air, make more planes. And one of the things that he did was he created what was called the Spitfire Fund. And any gift, no matter how large or how small, he announced it in the newspapers, on the radio, and it generated this groundswell of support. So people were just sending money in so that they had enough money to generate new airplanes. And he did it because he branded this as a fund, and every time a gift came in, he was putting that donor's name in lights, and that was serving as an example to others. And so the other people started to follow. And soon they had enough money to make many more airplanes. And that was one of the ways that they were able as a country to keep fighting the war before America got into it. So as you are putting your strategy together for the coming years, I would encourage you to find more ways to tout and showcase and thank your donors for their generosity. It's not going to hurt you to put their name in lights right now. It's going to remind them that they are a part of a greater solution, and it's going to motivate others to join them. So the more you can recognize people's gifts, whether they're small gifts or big gifts, the more creative you can be in doing that, and the more broadly you can spread that recognition, the more support you'll have in the long run. So I say be like him, sorta, because it turns out he was a highly, highly unlikable fellow. Like, he alienated just about everyone he ever came in contact with, except for Churchill, although he tried, because every 3 or 4 months he would get sort of sulky because people weren't thanking him enough or telling him that he was likable and smart or whatever other ego strokes that he would need. So like every 3 or 4 months, he would submit his resignation letter, and then Churchill would have to cajole him and flatter him into keeping his post. And Churchill was the only one that could work with him. He like totally alienated everyone else that was in leadership at that time. Which just goes to show that even if you are unlikable, you can still be a fundraiser if you have a worthy cause, if your ask was clear, and if the results are apparent. So you guys got this. You're the experts in your work, you're the experts in your mission, and you know how to do this. So hopefully this time that we had together today gives you a little bit of process that you can take back and put your thoughts together after learning so much over the past couple weeks. Questions?
Thank you so much, Danny. I'll definitely, please feel free to throw them up in the chat, or if you want to unmute, and I'll try to pay attention and scroll through. I think one thing that came up in our small group discussions, which I heard this isn't a format we've gotten to do with Developing Lancaster before, so thank you for that. On Zoom, we've been a little bit less conversational between ourselves. I think we had some value in that. I know you're not magic and you can't predict the future, but we've seen the kind of trend in terms of fundraising, right? So there's the uptick, there's the slump,
Yep.
and there's the evening out.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering if you were going to like forecast for 2020, and I'm thinking also Extra Give, because for some organizations, Extra Give is the annual appeal. For some organizations, Extra Give is extra. People approach it from a variety of strategies, and I think in Lancaster it tends to be a significant drop of fundraising. So if you could talk to those two, those are two things that are on my mind.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're kind of still in the initial uptick based on some of the results that we're seeing about what's working for organizations, right? Like CAP's getting a lot more money than they have previously. Like, you're able to put these stewardship funds together and have really good results. So I think that we're still riding that initial wave in some ways. It might be starting to crest, and I think it's tied a little bit to how soon we get to open back up. I think the dip that we can expect to see is going to be longer than just the summer. I think it's probably going to go in the fall. And so that might impact Extra Give a little bit, although keep in mind the Extra Give is all about individual donors, right? And so they're the ones that are giving more now than the other two categories. So there's some possibility there. And again, if you want to mitigate against whatever fallout there is, like keeping your donors engaged, keep pressing the pedal on what's working, keep having really rich engagement with them, like honest to God conversations with as many people as possible, you're gonna have better results in the long run, even if, you know, this year's Extra Give isn't as amazing as last year's was. You know, the tail end of that chart that we see is things do improve and they're better than they were before. So that's coming at some point. Hopefully we will all be alive to see it.
Yes, please. Are there any other questions? Because I have one more and I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'm not seeing anybody. We still have 5 minutes. One thing I'm curious about, you said getting other members of the team on board with fundraising. Do you have a list or any ideas? This is something that I think we could do better at the foundation. And there's creative ways we've tried to do it during the pandemic. But I'm wondering, like, a list of what you ask people or
Mm.
ways. I think board engagement, I feel like we talk about that a lot in terms of board engagement and comfort with fundraising.
Mhm.
So anything you could say more to that, I would be really curious about.
Yeah, so I would have your team do all the warm fuzzy things, like all of the thanking, all of the reaching out, saying, hey, I'm a program director and we just want to check in and see how you're doing. I'm not asking you for money right now, but tell me what's going on in your world. How are you teaching your kids, or have you given up on that? How much wine are you drinking? Because I'm drinking a lot of wine, like all of those warm fuzzy things are places that they could really excel. And then that's not scary, right? Like they don't have to be the ones to ask, but the more warm fuzzy stuff you can be doing, the more the donors are going to remember you when they're ready to give or give again. So phone calls, thank you notes, the things like who's ever, I forget who gave the example of, the DVS program director putting something on Facebook, doing that as program staff. That's actually fundraising because you're touching an audience, even if it's not specifically asking for money. And those of you that are comfortable asking for money, go with your development director or take your program person with you so that they can speak to what the programs are doing right now. They don't have to be the ones to say, will you give me money, please? You can do that, that's your job, but have them with you to talk about what's happening and give the nuance is really beneficial also.
Thank you, Danny. That's helpful because I think we have a range. I know in our organizations, a range of, the number of people who are doing fundraising and development, a range in the type of things our boards are comfortable in doing.
And here's the good news, like expressing gratitude makes you feel better, right? So if you can get your team, and this might be another fun way to involve them in the fundraising plan creation of like brainstorming, like what creative free things can we be doing for our audience, and then have them do it. There's a side benefit that it's going to cheer them up and it's probably going to strengthen your team too.
That's good perspective. We have a question from John. This is a great question. Thank you, John. Do you have any recommendations on how to capitalize on the $300 above the line deduction for the 2020 tax year? So this is new through the Federal CARES Act. How can we leverage this support to encourage how can we leverage this to encourage a broader base of support?
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you all know, like you could include that in a newsletter, right, as information. But another thing that you could do, and again, this is the degree to which you're comfortable and the degree to which you think it's appropriate for your audience right now. So you need to be discerning because this might not be something that you think your audience is ready for. But if people had been giving like $200 or $150 last year, pulling that list and asking them to consider making a $300 gift, knowing that it's a tax deduction, that would be one thing you can do. And that would be a fairly straightforward, and then you could be generating some additional income. So, and then if you were to collect a certain number of $300 donations, create a little giving club around them, like the 300 Club, to thank and steward them in a special way, or call them out in a newsletter so that it highlights, here are the people that made their tax deduction donation this year, so that it ties back to that recognition opportunity again. And then of course, any multiples of 300, right? So a $600 gift, or, like you could expand that to be as comprehensive and complicated as you would want it to be.
That's a really good idea. Thank you, Danny. And thank you, John, for asking the question. I know we're almost at time. Does anybody have any other burning questions, thoughts? Okay, so again, I'll be sending out the slides and the handouts from Danny's presentation. And Danny, you mentioned your website, which is a really great resource. I didn't say that at the first, but Danny has a blog and she has resources on her site. So I'll make sure to send out a link to that as well.
I have my own mailing list, and I have people from Pennsylvania and Washington State, and I even have some people in Virginia, and I'm not quite sure how I got those folks, but they're there. So I've been doing my own webinars, and I have a couple that I recorded, and now I have a YouTube page, which is super fancy, and I have 1 subscriber, and I'm pretty sure that's my mother. But if you sign up on my website, I can send you the link, or you can just Google Danny Beam on YouTube, because there's also a couple of free webinars out there now too.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. Yeah, I got to be on one of the free webinars Danny did, and it was fantastic. If you signed up, so next week coming up, before I say that, thank you so much, Danny, for providing this for us. I think it was really robust. I feel like I need to like go and process a little bit more. So this is recorded. I will send out the link. So if you want to revisit any of this, you'll also have the slides so you can go along. If your internet, you know, might have failed at any point, don't worry, there's a recording. Next week, looking forward, we're going to have Susan and Christine from Allegra Events. We're so grateful to have them presenting for us. Danny is also having Allegra present on May 6th. So you might have signed up for her if you got in her webinar with Susan and Christine. It's a different format. It's a little bit smaller. There's breakout rooms. There's a cap. Developing Lancaster, we tend to be a little bit more come as you like. It might not be as conversational. You might not get to dig a little deeper, but it's kind of like getting information out to as many people as we can. So come to both, come to one. What works for you. But we're so excited to have Susan and Christine because they are experts in event planning. They're probably working with some of your organizations on the call, and they're really going to focus, like Danny was talking about, on creatively thinking through how do we shift events to be virtual, to be meaningful, to be impactful, not something that's thrown together. So we're really looking forward to that. That will be next week, May 7th at 4 p.m. Week after that, we have Kedron from Work Wisdom who'll be talking about resilience. Please know, yes, Christina, if there are other people in your organization that these topics make more sense for, they are welcome. Please send things on over to them, even if they don't want to be on the mailing list, they're welcome to attend. We know each team is different and it makes sense for different people to attend. So thank you for asking that, Christina. And that holds true for any Developing Lancaster. This is here to be a resource. So with that, I'm going to say I'm grateful for all of you. I know we are all probably Zoom fatigued at the end of every day, but thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Danny, for the excellent information. Thank you all for being engaged and being such a bright light in our community during this really difficult time. And I will look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, Alma. It was a pleasure to be with you. I hope it was useful. I hope I didn't explode your brain too much. Wine does help, so try that first.
Thank you so much, Danny. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.